Hello, and welcome to the pre-reader or Grammar A or Grammar B explanation of the Cursive and Spelling Learning Booklet or packets for ACE. Here at the Academy for Character Education, we want to build attentiveness into children's experience while they learn to read, write, and spell. And so we are using a theory of reading education called the Writing Road to Reading. It teaches speech and spelling and writing and reading combined, and we also pull from this book Spelling Power. So it's kind of an explanation of what we use, and now I'm going to go into this. The students at ACE usually get this entire packet of papers given to them a little bit at a time throughout the whole year. But I have the book here, and I'm going to be able to flip through it while we work together to explain it. Okay, first of all, we use cursive. At ACE, we will teach them to read through the explanation and the practice of doing cursive. And when you're doing blended learning here at ACE, and you have to work with the children at home and we work with them at school, then it definitely will make a difference if we're speaking the same language and if all of us are on the same page. So here is an explanation of what that means. First of all, we want to have common language about the dotted line. So the top line, dotted line, and bottom line people in the world use different language for that, right? And at ACE, when you look at this line on the bottom, we call it the baseline. And this dotted line in the middle, we call the midline. And then the top line up here, we call the top line. And then this space on the bottom is called the basement. The space in the middle is called the main level. The space in the top is called the attic. We use that language just to kind of help everybody hear with their ears and then make their hand draw and accurately. We also use the language of the clock. So we'll often say go over to 2 o'clock and back, around to 2 o'clock, or back around, go up and over to 2 o'clock. That kind of language is something that we build in by teaching them about the clock and spacing at the beginning of the year. Pretty quickly into the year, we start teaching them about making specific strokes. So here on this page, they have short uphill stroke, they learn, clock face stroke, connector stroke, the letter A and the letter C. And that is pretty much right out of the gate at the beginning of the school year. They're going to learn to do that. Now, the way this instruction is made is so that at school, they can do this, and then they can repeat that again at home and practice it, what they learned. So what they learn at school is that we're going to do something called a short uphill stroke, that's in bold. And then the parent or teacher says the italicized sentence out loud. And that gives the child time to make their pencil obey those instructions at the same time while the parent or teacher is saying the sentence. So it looks like this. Start on the baseline and swoop upward, stopping at the dotted line. And then they have a blank dot so they can practice themselves, but the parent or teacher still wants to say that italicized sentence out loud. So then you say again, start at the baseline and swoop upward, stopping at the dotted line. Start at the baseline and swoop upward, stopping at the dotted line. And you just keep repeating it, and the child will eventually start repeating it. Start at the baseline and swoop upward to the dotted line and stopping at the dotted line. Then you go to the clock face stroke, you do the whole line, and this looks like a quick little worksheet, but it's not. This is actually a significant amount of work. I would definitely, I've done things where I put a chocolate chip here, and when they get to the end, they can have that chocolate chip. Sometimes they put a sticker at the end of each line or a star. Sometimes we just do a break. They have a 2-minute break at the end of each line. I'll put something here like a 2, and the child knows they get a 2-minute break and then a 2-minute break and then maybe a 4-minute break. Whatever is your child's language. If it's a chocolate chip, a break, or a sticker or a star, use something. You can use all kinds of highlighters to reward students with happy ideas, whatever works for you. In school, they'll sometimes do this practice with fancier pens later in the year because that's exciting. But it is a significant amount of work, and the child is not going to sit down and just whip it out. You've got to take your time and do a little bit at a time. So let's get down here to the letter A, which is not a stroke or a part of a letter, but in fact an entire 3 different strokes. You have the first one, the second one, and the third one, short uphill stroke, clock face stroke, and connector stroke, all wrapped up into the letter A. So you go like this. The child will use their pencil and start doing this, and the parent will read or say this out loud, the teacher also. Start at the baseline and make a short uphill stroke up and over on the 2 to the 2, and on the clock, stop. Without lifting the pencil, make a clock face stroke, stopping at 2, finish with a connector. And that language means that they're hearing, and first of all, it's helping them keep their focus. And second of all, it's making them slowly do it attentively. I can't tell you how effective this is for getting kids to be attentive writers. And eventually it gets more speedy. On this page, you have this italicized sentence on what to say. You don't have to say it exactly perfectly like this. After you do it a few times as a parent, it kind of gets redundant and you know what to say. And then you learn the C and you give the rewards as needed with either, chocolate chip or a sticker or a star or something. And you say, you worked really hard. We try to say you worked hard instead of good job because we really want students to understand that this school is about character building, right? And hard work is a character trait. So then let me go on to show you. Eventually, you're going to get on the second. Okay, let me show you. This was what they did in class. Okay, this is what they do in class. And this car is just something to have a visual conversation about. We actually draw on the child's hand a car or put a sticker on there. And we try to get them to understand that the paper is actually supposed to be slanted when you're writing. And our arms come out of our body at an angle. If our arms came out of our body going straight, then we should keep our paper straight. But since our arms come out of our body at an angle, that's the way we were created. Therefore, we shift the paper. Now, if you're left-handed, shift it left-handed. Either way is great. It's just you want to make sure the child knows that the paper does not have to be straight. This is something young writers really, really get into, making sure that their paper is just so. But that's actually not the way their body was made. And we tease and we make fun jokes about what if your hand came straight out of the middle of your chest. And it doesn't, right? It comes out the side. It's at an angle. Therefore, we turn our paper so that your hand is like a car, and we don't want to crash into the edges of the garage. We want to keep, our hand going the direction that it was made to go. Okay. This I'm going to ignore. That is not for today. Now, these pages say day 1, day 2, day 3, and day 4. And that's going to be a theme throughout the whole year. You're going to get a page the kid does at school. Let me show you. They'll have this page that they did at school. And then they will get to the pages where they do them at home. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. And this is all your family will receive the first week. It's just this little packet like this. And it's not quick, right? You want to take it slowly and do it attentively. Plus, honestly, it might seem like you have to give your child a lot of attention, but once you get in a routine, it goes much more quickly. Now, let me repeat here. We have the strokes with the italicized words to teach you parents and us teachers and the child how to slowly and attentively draw these strokes, draw these letters. The directions are here. It says, write the following letters slowly and carefully while the parent narrates directions each time. I definitely narrate half of the time, and then hopefully the child starts to narrate a little bit. but you can, it's much more efficient if you do it all together. If a student makes a mistake or goes over the lines, you can erase the letter and begin again. Definitely take that with a grain of salt. If this is not for your child because it's overwhelming, then they're little. They need some grace there. But if they're being wonky and wild, or if you just feel like you should pick one favorite out, then or one extra one to fix. Actually, let me say, that's what I will do. Like, say there's all wonky and my child drew them all funky. Maybe I will go through and say, hey, bud, which one of these do you think you want to fix? And then we'll fix one and we'll say, okay, that looks good. Let's fix that one. And that teaches them the art of fixing something without getting too overwhelming. Okay, so it is really, really helpful to get them to begin properly. They might then go back and fix a second one because they don't feel overwhelmed, but they're starting to have what we love, which is called attentiveness, right? And take each step slowly. The directions say, write at least 6 letters or strokes on each line. If your letters or strokes are written perfectly, you may do only 4. Those rules sound really tight and strict, but the big idea is there, right? You're going to not punish the child, make them have too much pain, but you're also going to make sure that they are trying to be attentive. And then at the end of the line, remember they just worked hard and they might need a little bit of a break. They're not going to just whip out the whole page sometimes. But if you're kind and slow and gentle about the whole thing, there's a very good chance they will extend their focus for you. Extending focus is something ACE loves to see families do. And it does take some time. So saying the italicized word out loud while the child writes it, that's the magic sauce. So then we get over here, day 2, same thing. That's all they did on the first day of their writing lesson. The second day of the writing lesson is here. And that's all they're supposed to do in one day. Then the third day of the writing lesson, there is more writing to do, but now they're more familiar with it. It's much more ingrained in them. And you can use a highlighter or marker and go over them if you would like to. They should now begin the process. You can say that the instructions start at the midline, go down to the baseline, form a connector. You can say those directions, but also when you get down to these letters, you'll see that there's these directions at, a, ah, and those are the first 3 sounds that the phonics make. So A, most commonly in the English language, says ah, and then it will say a. This is the second most common, and then it will say ah as the third most common sound. So ACE will teach the phonograms with all 3 sounds, ah, a, ah, and they will look at the A and they will learn to say ah, a, ah. Now, when they're sounding out words, we just use that first sound as we learn. First sounds are what we do when we're young. But when you're learning that this letter, this symbol, this line, this squiggly line on the page has a magic component where it makes a sound, that is going to be the beginning of great reading instruction. Okay, so then you start by giving them either the handwriting instructions and at a ah, or now that their handwriting is a little bit improved, you can say at a ah, at a ah, at a ah, at a ah, and the child can say at a ah out loud. This means that while maybe you're doing something else in the room, you can hear them saying the sounds out loud. So C has 2 sounds, k, s, and those 2 sounds are most common for the C. So they would say k, s, k, s, k, s, k, s. I'm not writing very slanted because I'm trying to make a video, but I usually write with my page slanted, which makes my letters much better, right? And so you'll do the same thing for capital letters once a week, just a little bit of information on capital letters. And the 4th day of the week, they'll just review all of those basics about the spacing on the lines, the clock concept, and all this information is in that week's packet. Okay, so let's skip a couple weeks into the future And now the child has been reading and doing those first letters. We're here with the letter K. We have italicized. It's the day 1 of the homework, day 2 of the homework, day 3 of the homework, day 4 of the homework. Okay. Day 1 of the homework, they are, you have all the italicized instructions, and you need to work and focus on the first day of homework. We focus on slow, kind, calm handwriting instructions, maybe with some sort of small reward at the end of each line. M&Ms work great for that, or even those tiny M&Ms. Those are even better. But you don't have to always give rewards either. You can do a little quick star or a sticker, whatever your child needs to help them understand that it's going to pay off, like this work is going to pay off. So for K, it's even longer, right? And the parent, it might be frustrating, but actually it's so efficient. It's worth the time you put into it. Start on the baseline and make an attic loop stroke, which they've learned. On the way back down, bring the pencil straight down to the baseline and stop. Without lifting the pencil, retrace up that last line to start the small pedal stroke, which they've learned by now, and finish with a connector. And then you say all that instruction again. Start at the baseline, go up to the attic line, go straight back down, and stop. Go up to the midline, make a small pedal stroke, and then form a connector. And as you notice, I just didn't say everything exactly perfectly, but I did approximate it. And while I was doing it, I was attentively and slowly drawing it. It really does work like that with your kids. So the first day of the week, that handwriting instruction is really, really important, okay? The second day of the week, still handwriting instruction, but different letters, okay? And then you can review, if you want to, a little bit. And third day of the week, now we're working on the sounds, okay? So if I'm doing the K, it says K, not K, because K has a at the end of it. Just the sound K. So we start at the baseline, go up to the attic line, go straight back down, form a small pedal stroke, make a connector. Yes, that's good. Those are handwriting instructions. But now my child knows that handwriting instruction, and I can review it a little bit if needed. And then they go, and they start making all of the sounds as they write. This is the secret sauce, okay? They're attentive. They're writing calmly, and then they are like getting a pretty quick reward for it, right? Because you want to let them know that what they're doing is significant work, and that's valuable. And then you want to validate that, but then also teach them the sounds, review those sounds. Then on day 4, after the school year has gotten going, you're going to take the sounds that you've learned this week and combine them to make words. And this is the 4th day of the week. They're just going to do like 2 to 4 words during first term. It looks like 4 words is pretty consistent. And they're going to take those sounds in these boxes and combine them. So b, I, g. And then the I says I. The G says g, j. Those are the 2 sounds of each of those letters. But because we're learning to read, we're going to use the first sound. B, I, g. B, I, g. Big. And when you're learning to read like that, you have to start by breaking it apart. B, I, g. And so one of the tricks I wanted to teach you is anywhere, like out on the freeway when you're driving, or at a family member's house, or at, somewhere you see a sign, like the stop sign, for example, you can say the word and then go backwards, and you can say big and then ask your child to break it into small sounds backwards. B, I, g. So you can just be like completely riding in the car, ignoring all of this paperwork right now. Riding in the car, see a stop sign and say stop. How does that break into sounds? And then your child can go stop, stop. And that skill of taking small parts and making it a whole, and taking a whole and making it into small parts is really helpful, the back and forth of that. And so I'd love to see you teach your child to do this forwards and backwards. B-I-G, big. And sometimes I take a car, like a toy car, and we go B-I-G, but then we drive the car slowly, big. And so I should have a toy car here for that, but I don't. But I go B, and then I hop the car over to the I, then I hop the car to the G and say G, B-I-G. But then they want to drive the car, right, on its wheels, and they can slide it big, big. And that sounding out trick is actually working on day 4. So day 1 and 2 are about handwriting instructions. Day 3 is about sounds, and day 4 is about combining those sounds together. And that routine is going to stay that way for several weeks in a row. We have these little reminders here to make sure your hand is in the correct position. Make sure your child's pencil grip looks like the picture as much as possible, pretty close to it. If they're having any problem with either of those, just go ahead and talk to your academic dean. And then we have this reminder here of what we call the different parts of the lines that the kids write on, because they are going to need reminders, right? That is going to be important. Okay, so you have a different pacing. I think this book is older and has a different pacing, but you get the main idea there. With that, learning to read and write and spell all done at the same time, you can see that in one simple procedure throughout the week, the children are hearing and then applying it to their body to make their body obey, and then they're saying. So the hearing, the body obeying, and the saying is something that I've discussed in math, and I'm discussing here in writing and reading and spelling, because the truth is they're very connected. The kids have got to hear things, they've got to do the things, and then they've got to say the things. And those 3 skills really need to be done together. So ACE also provides a video of phonics where it's just a card of a letter, like an A, and the child can look at that letter and say out loud at a ah, because that's going to unlock the magic of reading for them. We don't actually believe that kids have to be forced to read. Most of the time, over 80% of the time, kids are going to get these tools, and then they're going to start using them throughout their life. And you're going to start noticing them try to sound out signs of businesses as they drive by, and the reading will begin to happen. I would definitely reiterate, be gentle and kind. Don't be stressed. Leave time to kind of be mindful and calm during these activities, and just validate their hard work, that they really are doing something that's awesome and significant. So let us know if you have any questions. We'd love to revisit any of this, and of course it's a video, so feel free to spend time reviewing it as needed. And we'd love to help you. Let us know.